I know in divorce, the first 6 months, you're out to really educate people on the actions that they need to take, right? Like taxes and money and houses and all of the stuff. And it's an extraordinary opportunity for people to go through with you as you coach people through that time. Mm-hmm. I want to speak to you a bit about some mindset stuff, if we can.
Yeah.
Because your program, while it does deal with some mindset, it's very much action oriented about what you need to do, which is so crucial. So I want to give us an opportunity and give you the opportunity to speak to some of this. And I'm looking down at my notes just so you know where I'm going here. I want to ask you this question. You know, here you are, you're now a single man who's speaking about divorce, committed to making a difference. What's important to you now?
What's important to me? Partnership. Meeting somebody. I haven't dated or been sexually active for about a year and change since then, because I just haven't met somebody that, you know, that requires that. Like, I'm not somebody that's going to go have sex. So to me, when I look at it from what's important to me is partnership. Like being with somebody that looks at me like they won the lottery, you know, and vice versa. Creating together, having kids. There's nothing more that I want in this world than to have kids. But I want to have kids in an environment of love, not just because I want to have kids. Because I'm okay with going the rest of my life without having kids. Even if I meet somebody that has kids, it doesn't, you know, everything is in play. Right. Whatever the universe brings, if I don't have to question it, it's working.
Yeah.
So so that's important to me. What's important to me is flowing. What's important to me inside the message, right, of what I'm doing now with the podcast and with all the other projects that I have going on around divorce is the storytelling. We all have a story, and allowing people to know that it's okay to feel sad, that it's okay to feel pain. And my goal when I have conversations and when I create everything is I look inside the camera, and what I'm talking to is like, if I can share one thing with people in the world is whatever they did to you, they have the right to do that. It's their choice. It's also your choice to not be the victim. Mm. And if you choose to be the victim, you're the one that's losing, my friend. Mm. But if you choose to accept whoever they chose to be and honor the time that you were with them because you chose to be with them and you were okay with sticking around, it was something that happened that you're like, okay, I'm not okay with that. Those are your values. Honor your values. Honor yourself. Honor yourself. And we're not property. We don't own people. Those days are over. So if somebody shows up and you don't want them to do, or you're controlling or something like that, like really just get down to the nitty gritty, which is whatever somebody else chooses to do, that's their choice. Whether you choose to accept it is yours.
So what would you say? Okay, I know this might be a challenge. Okay. So you have to think of one thing in one sentence.
Okay.
Which is, if you could in one sentence say the biggest lesson that you got out of taking a stand for being released from your marriage, what would that be?
Wow, Abbie. Ask me the question again.
Of course.
Yeah.
If you could in one sentence express the biggest lesson that you have received from God, universe, spirit, whatever you're calling it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I believe that we receive the lessons until we learn them.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to hear from you the biggest lesson that you learned out of taking a stand to be released from your marriage in such an honorable way. And you have to say it in one sentence.
Oh, I got it.
Okay.
I am worthy of being loved.
It's awesome. Oh, so good. So good. Okay. So I'm going to start to wrap up our interview, but I have a couple of things I want to create.
Okay.
So the first is, um, you said something, and I think for all the lady listeners who listen to you are going to have this question. Because you said, when you met your ex-wife and you were like, we're getting married, and you created the whole fantasy, you're like, I'm only going to do this once.
Right.
So where are you about marriage? Do you want to get married? Is that something you're creating for yourself? Like, what is your view on love and marriage now?
I don't need the paperwork. So marriage to me is about the vows and the commitment. And I am 100% willing to play in that game. I'm also willing to sign the papers and do all of that stuff, but that's not important anymore. To me, it's about, I mean, all I need is a microphone and an audience, and I'll tell anybody when I'm in love and how that makes me feel. And I think that is like, I think that's for me bigger than marriage. Marriage right now encompasses a document and the legal proceedings and all of that stuff. And I can give a rat's ass about that. What I care about is partnership and being honorable to the commitment, the vows. So a spiritual wedding is something that I would prefer to a courtroom wedding.
Yeah. So do you think that your view of marriage is now tainted or jaded?
Absolutely not.
Of what you went through?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
On the contrary, being married to her gave me access to a level of love that I have never experienced and can't wait to duplicate. Being able to give to somebody and sharing this life with somebody was the biggest gift that she could have ever given me. And I thank her daily for that. And I still, to this day, I still cherish what happened and who she was for me in my life.
That's awesome. The definition of marriage, because you know me, I love definitions of words. We started with the definition of divorce. I want to look at this definition of marriage. It even talks about companies in the dictionary, because companies can get married, so to speak. But one of my favorite definitions is it's a relationship in which two people have pledged themselves to each other in the manner of, like, for men and women, it would be as husband and wife. Right. And if you're, it could be wife and wife and husband. But, but it's a relationship in which two people have pledged themselves to each other. I think it speaks to exactly what you were speaking to, that I think, like I talked about at the beginning, this world about the fantasy and the fantasy that it is. And we're so conditioned to want, like, what's happening in television or in, movies and things like that. Right. And we deter what we're seeing. And I think this also happens when you're older, that love is a part of it, but it's not the whole thing. And when you walk in, like, what's like determining what your values are, partnership, commitment. And when you find someone with the same values, that is when it is appropriate to pledge yourself to someone. It's like, who are you going to be on the journey with?
Yeah.
Who's going to guide you to what's next? Yeah. And who do you want to, in your times, I think it's both ways. In your times of when you are at your lowest, is that the person that you want to help carry you? And are you willing to see that other person at their lowest and carry them through? And I think that is such a critical thing. And I think you've really spoken to that. So I want to give you the opportunity again in like 30 seconds or less to say anything that you want the listeners to be left with, or your commitment to them. And then I'm going to wrap up our interview.
Awesome. Let me think for a second so that what comes up is there. So right now you're hearing me, and we're also recording it in video. So I'm going to look at the camera. So when you guys get to see this, you'll have that experience. So My commitment to this conversation and to you who is about to go through divorce or is healing from one is that you understand that there's rules to this game, and that those rules can be created, they can be bended, they can be folded, and they can be used, or you can be used by them. Educate yourself, whether it be with me or with somebody else. Find your smile, because that's the window to your soul. And if you can smile through this process, then you're going to be moving through it at a very, very, very nice pace. If you're not smiling, distinguish whether it's journaling or remembering, whether it's a photo album or a piece of paper, but create the life that you want. Do not react to it. I think that's what I would say.
Awesome. Oh, it's so good. So in wrapping up, there's a couple things I want to just create for the listeners. So first is congratulations on your 10th episode. It's very exciting. I've been with you since the beginning, and to watch this whole thing unfold and the amount of people who are getting the support they need through your podcast is extraordinary. I also want to keep the listeners open for what's to come in terms of other things that Peter is going to be putting out there into the world to really empower people in giving them the actual steps and walking people through the steps in your first 6 months of divorce. Yeah. It's been such an honor and a pleasure to be on this journey with you, Peter, and to just do this interview with you. I appreciate and acknowledge your vulnerability and your authenticity and just sharing with us. And, honestly, as someone who has not been married, like I said, has had significant relationships, it really actually, I'm really walking away with like hope. Like there's hope in finding love. There's hope in loving myself. There's hope in my own journey. And I think that's what people walk away with after they listen to this podcast. So for all you listeners out there, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. If you want to connect with me, you can check out my website. It's abbieweiss.com, which Peter, I'm sure, will have listed. And, check out Peter's other podcasts. If you haven't listened to them, listen for the future, subscribe to everything that he's doing so that you are kept up to speed and you can connect with Peter for more support. And with that, what do you always say, Peter, at the end?
Be courageous, be vulnerable. It makes a difference.
That's a wrap on another episode of Divorce the First 6 Months. Don't forget to hit subscribe for more insights. Take care.